For coming to our 9th annual youth conference. May Allah reward you all for coming to this blessed gathering today. May Allah increase us in Iman and grant us a place in Jannatul Firdaus. Ameen. The main focus of our youth group is to bring our youth back to the masjid and to unite our community with one thing that we commonly all share, which is Al-Islam. Also, our objective is to reduce and stop violence amongst our youth and to promote brotherhood and sisterhood amongst Muslims in our community. The theme of this year's conference is recurring challenges. We have chosen this topic so that we can help our Muslim community combat different challenges that we face on a daily basis on a road towards worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today we have 4 speakers, beginning with Sheikh Kamal El Mekki, who will be beginning right now, Sheikh Abdul Bari Yahya, Ibrahim Downey, and last but not least, Sayyid Ragi, who will be coming later on tonight. I hope we all benefit from our speakers and the knowledge that they will share with us. Without further ado, and now I will ask the Shaykh to begin his lecture, inshallah.
Yeah, just continue. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alaikum assalam. Me? Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillahi al-Ameen. Amma ba'd. The topic of the lecture that I have to give is the topic of the lecture I have to give is strengthening one's memory. Strengthening one's memory. Okay. You know what? The only thing about this setup is I can't interact with you now. I just see blackness and 2 lights on my face. But I wanted to really find out from you if you really care about your memory. Maybe I can see some hands. Who cares about? Now, be honest now. Don't just say Alhamdulillah. You know. Who really cares about their, strengthening their memory? Could you put your hands up? Okay. So I see a few people. Okay, that's good. So people care about strengthening their memory. Because I'm just thinking, do youth really care about things like that? More? All right. Alright, so it's good to see that some of you do care about that. That's good. What is memory? If you were closer, I would ask you to tell me what it is. But since you're so far, I'll just answer my own question. So let's just say it's just your ability to retain information. How about that? Just to make it easier. Your ability to keep information here so you can pull it out later on. There are really 2 types of memory, really, for in the brain. There are 2 types of memory that you store. There's long-term memory and there's short-term memory. Obviously, the one we want to talk about today is long-term memory. This is the kind of memory where you sit down and you purposely memorize something, either it's ayat from the Quran or a hadith or something from your science book for a test or an exam that you have. So you're making effort to store it in a place where you can get it again in the future. In the near future, maybe beyond that. Now, is also the same type of memory that you use to remember your address and phone numbers and things of that sort. But now, of course, there's also short-term memory. This is a place where the things that you see that you don't really need to keep for long, it goes there temporarily. For example, let's say you have a phone book over there and you need to make a phone call. So you go look at the phone book, you get the number. What do? You repeat it to yourself a few times. By the time you come here, you still remember it. It's part of your short-term memory. You still remember it. But then at night or 3 days later, you don't remember it anymore. Why? Because you stored it in your short-term memory. Someone's having a good time over there. I wish I was there, huh? All right. So this is short-term memory, long-term memory. And have you ever experienced what they call déjà vu? Anyone experienced that? Yeah? And it's kind of basically when you see a scene or something and you've seen it before. And you keep telling yourself, what was this? Was I like a bird in another life? We don't believe in that stuff, right? So how do you explain that? And one of the best explanations we found is they tell you that, usually the things that you see while you're driving, the color of the car in front of you, it goes into your short-term memory. But 2 days later, you don't remember what the color of the car in front of you was, what the license plate was, because it's erased immediately. So they say that when you see something instead of going to the short-term memory, by mistake, it goes to the long-term memory. And so you feel that you've seen this before, because you have a memory of this before. But it's just like an electrical mistake in the brain, where you just see something, instead of going to short-term memory, it goes to long-term memory. So that's kind of the phenomenon behind that. I need to speak louder still? Okay. A little bit more, I'm going to be having this for breakfast. Yeah. So, okay. So now the other thing is, what's the golden age of memorization? You know, anyone know? Who can tell me when it ends? Naam? Somebody yell something out. 60? Oh, 40? No. No, the golden age. You can memorize the Quran until 60. I know of a sheikh, he memorized the Quran in his 60s. 12? No. All right, stop guessing. I thought somebody maybe has read something. They tell you the golden age is basically from whatever you... Halas, we're done with that segment. So, until 23. That's the golden age. From whenever, 3, 4, 5 years old, until 23. That's the golden age. You can still keep memorizing, your brain still works beyond that, but this is the golden age. So those of you who haven't reached that age yet, take this opportunity. But let me ask you this, what are you here in the audience, what are you trying to memorize? Quran? Anyone trying to memorize anything else? No? Anyone just trying to generally improve their memory? You know, when you get directions, you stop and ask someone for directions. He goes, at the next light, it's called this street. Make a right, then you'll see another road called this. Make a left. You say, thank you. By the time you roll up your window, you forgot everything. Right? Okay. So generally, let's say the main point is to memorize the Quran, and then from there on maybe to memorize the adhkar, memorize a hadith, or memorize knowledge in general. And alhamdulillah, I see some more people today with papers and taking notes. That's good. Why memorize anything? And the scholars say that the thing about true knowledge is it's in the head. True knowledge is in the head. So if I would have lost my notes for this lecture today, I'll just have to come here and sing you a song, maybe dance or something, and that's it. Because true knowledge is up here. There was a story of a man who went to copy this book. So he went and he traveled a long way through the deserts, and he sat down for months. He was copying this book. And then on the way back, he's got his copy now. This is way back then. They didn't have printing presses and copy machines. So he copied it by hand, the whole book. On the way back, their caravan was stopped by a bunch of highway robbers. So the guy asked him, what do you have with you? He said, look, take everything I have. Take clothes, take my money and everything. But I spent the last year writing this book, copying it. And that's all that I came for. So just leave me the book. So the gang leader, he said, you spent your whole year writing this book? What if I just take it from you right now? And he took it from him. So the guy was a bully basically, but he learned the lesson that the knowledge should be up here and not just in notes. I'll tell you of a really weird man that we met in Virginia, in the United States. This guy, a friend of mine was talking to him, and he noticed the man thinks of himself as a scholar, and he is below average in his knowledge, but he was talking like he's the scholar of the ummah. So my friend just wanted to test him because he was speaking a bit strange. He said, so are you telling me you have more knowledge than the scholars of Islam before, from Ibn Taymiyyah and so on and so forth? He said, yes, of course I have more knowledge than them. He said, how is that? He said, because you can ask me any question, I can go look it up. So mashallah, that's what a scholar is. So I can say, ask me any question in the world. I'm the world's most knowledgeable man in any topic. Even if it's medicine. You ask me a question, just wait here. And then I go home, I look it up and I read books and I come back and say, okay, I don't even know what time it is now. But it's okay. So real knowledge really is in the head. It's not what you can go and look up. That means librarians, some of the smartest people. Now you have, Google search engines. That means we're all scholars. So it has to be up here. And therefore, there has to be something about memorization and the importance of memorization. Okay. You know something, you always find it difficult in the beginning to memorize. Whatever it is you're memorizing, if you're memorizing Quran, if you're studying, but then after a while you get the hang of it and you get used to memorizing. So some of the early Muslims used to say, we found memorizing really difficult at first, but we pushed ourselves and then it started to come naturally. It wasn't that difficult. And one of the early Muslims, he was trying to gain knowledge. He was trying to like sink it all in at one time, absorb everything. He's trying to learn hadith over here, trying to learn tafsir over there, aqeedah over there. So he's trying so much, and sometimes all these things, they just get jammed and nothing comes through. So he found it difficult. He was about to give up seeking knowledge. So as he was walking, he saw this big rock, this boulder, and from the cliff there was water that would drip onto this boulder. And he noticed that where the water was dripping on the boulder, it made a hole in the boulder. So he thought to himself, subhanallah, my heart, it can't be harder than this rock, than this boulder. That means if I take knowledge drop by drop, it will come. If I take it bit by bit, it will come. So don't try to overwhelm yourself by taking in so much or too much at one time. Okay. How about examples of and who do you know of the scholars that had superb memory? Anyone? Yell out a name. Bukhari. Somebody said Imam Bukhari. No doubt, it was phenomenal memory. Anybody else? Shafi'i. Very good. All the four Imams, right? Imam Malik, and he was a young boy when he started to seek knowledge. So he went to the house of his sheikh for the first time. He wanted the sheikh to give him a hadith from the chain of narrators and everything. So he sat down and the sheikh gave him 13 hadith with full chain of narration, and he wrote them down. So he tells the sheikh, give me more. So the sheikh said, well, wait till you go home, memorize them and then come back. So he said, I memorized them already. So he said, he took the page from him and he said, go ahead, recite. And he gave him all 13 ahadith as is. And so, okay, so these now are rarities, or these people have this ability that typically not everybody is born with. And I love it when in our day and age, like brothers don't take notes. Until I'm take notes and they tell you, oh, I'm like Bukhari, I memorize. MashaAllah. Maybe you memorize Britney Spears songs or something. Okay. So, the point is, I mean, even Imam Bukhari himself, he used to write things down. He would memorize it in the class, but then when he would go, he would start to write things down. Alright, so what are the things that improve your hifz, your memorization? And I would have liked to ask you for some of your ideas, but since you're too far away, one of the things definitely, just like anything else, seeking knowledge, acts of worship, is to have ikhlas, is to do something sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that makes it so pure, and it will facilitate it for you. So when you have ikhlas, you're memorizing the Quran for the sake of Allah. You're memorizing this hadith for the sake of Allah. You're memorizing this small book of dua for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you can benefit from it, and perhaps in the future teach it to others. Not so other people can look at you. Because when that's the only motive people have, when you stop praising them, so let's say somebody is doing something just so people can look at him and say, MashaAllah, this person, look how much he memorized. You know, when that type of person, when they're not praised, they stop. Because they're doing it so people praise them. So when nobody praises them, they're sluggish, they become slow. Because nobody's saying anything good about them anymore. So have ikhlas, one of the facilitators of memorizing, of learning. And make dua. We spoke about dua yesterday, and you never overlook or underestimate the power of dua. So you make dua, and it's one of the best ways of attaining good. When your parents make dua for you, to give you fiqh and understanding of the religion, and you make dua to Allah also to help you memorize the Quran or to help you understand His religion. It's one of the best ways of getting good for yourself is by making dua. And let's now combine the dua with the water of Zamzam, because the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that drinking the water of Zamzam, it's for whatever you drink it for. So a lot of the scholars used to drink it, and they used to intend or want it for a certain thing. For example, Imam Ibn Hajar, one of the great Imams, he drank the water of Zamzam and he asked Allah to give him the power of memorization of Al-Dhahabi. Imam Al-Dhahabi had incredible memory. So he asked Allah, while he was drinking the water of Zamzam, that he would get the memorization of Al-Dhahabi. So dua, and we have ikhlas. Very popular thing that helps you keep your memory and keep what you've memorized is to stay away from sins. This is very popular and a lot of people are aware of this. And the early Muslims and the scholars, they used to warn their students, and the students would warn their students to stay away from sins, because it's something that will damage your memorization and your ability to memorize, or also it will damage what you've memorized already. And there's the famous poetry and famous sayings. For example, Imam al-Shafi'i that you mentioned, who has good memory, and he went to Waki' ibn al-Jarrah, another scholar, and he told him, he complained to him of his weakness of memory. But of course, this is by his standards. His memory was absolutely superb. But he complained to Waki'. He said that my memory is not very strong. So what can I do to improve it? And so Waki' told him to stay away from sinning, because the knowledge is like light given to you by Allah, and Allah will not give this light to a sinner. So staying away from sins, having ikhlas, making dua, and putting some kind of effort. And this is the thing that a lot of people want things easy nowadays. People don't have patience to wait through memorizing. People want things to come very easy. They want the quick fix, they want the shortcut. When it comes to worship, when it comes to knowledge, when it comes to everything. I know that, for example, a lot of people, they'll say there's a lecture. Okay, I'll hear it when it comes out on CD or on DVD. And I know a lot of people are not taking notes now because they say, I'll get the DVD when it comes out, inshallah. And how many people really have you seen just at home, they put in a DVD, and they take their notes and then they write down everything that's being said on. How many times have you seen that? Who has seen that? Put your hands up. Nobody? Okay, one hand is up. 2, 3, 4 of the full room, like 4 people have seen. Maybe there are more, but I'll pretend that's all. That's 4 people who have seen that happen. Like somebody will play in a tape of a lecture or a DVD and just sit down and take notes. Most of the time, if you don't take notes during the lecture, that's it. Because this is the way we are these days. We feel that as long as the knowledge is there somewhere, I have it. So I don't know what the Shaykh said, but I've got the DVD at home. Oh, mashallah, good for you. Well, I don't know what this is about, but I've got an entire book about it. So mashallah, that's nice. But what about the knowledge being up here to some degree? How many people make any effort to memorize, like the names of Sahaba? How many times have you heard this? Just tell me, how many times have you heard this? I can't remember the name of the Sahabi, but there was the Sahabi that was walking with the Prophet ﷺ. How many times have you heard that? 1,000,000 times I've heard it. I can't remember the name, but it was the Sahabi that when he was walking. Why don't you know the name of the Sahabi? Why? Very few people know the name of the Sahabi. Who are the 10 given glad tidings of paradise? You tell him how many albums has so and so put out. Oh well, in 1993 he put out in 96 he put another one out. So, but effort, people. We know one brother in our area. Not only does he's so not aware of which Sahabi is which, he just calls the Sahabis brothers. Yeah, what's the hadith with the brother who asked the Prophet ﷺ? He said, okay, that's the best respect we could come out with. All right, طيب. So putting some kind of good effort into memorization and generally into learning as well. Choosing the good times, and this is different for certain people. For some people, it's better for them to start memorizing after Fajr. Some people at night before they go to bed. Some people like during midday, that's when their brain is at full function. So, and there isn't a formula here, whatever works best for you. So those of you who are memorizing the Quran, you've probably recognized that there are the times that work best for you, and there are ways that work best for you. So whatever time is most effective for you, you make an effort to keep that time free. No one distracts you at that time, no phones, nothing to distract you, because this is the time that's best for your memorization. And some people also, the physical position they're in helps them with memorization. And of course, as you know, there's a huge relationship between the position of your body and the mental condition, or even the spiritual condition that you're supposed to be in. Right? If somebody hangs you upside down and says, memorize, well, you can still read, your eyes are still following the words, but it doesn't help you memorize because it's an awkward position. Some people, it's better for them, they prefer to pace back and forth while they're memorizing, while they recite out loud, if it's a book of hadith or ad'iyah or ayat, or even you're studying for your exams, so they keep walking back and forth, saying things out loud. Some people prefer to sit down. Whatever works best for you, there isn't a specific formula here. If you're memorizing the Quran, the scholars recommend that you keep like one print or one copy. Everyone familiar with this? How like sometimes you know that the verse number 10 is at the bottom of the surah and you can see it while you're reciting. But if you use a different one every time, and every time it's in a different place, you don't have one clear image of where it is. And so it assists you to memorize by keeping just one copy that you use, or one manuscript that you use. Another thing is to not stop, because when you stop, you lose momentum. You always find that this young man was memorizing Quran progressively. He memorized 3, 4, 5 ajza, and then he stopped going to the school, or he stopped memorizing. Now, when you stop memorizing the Quran, not only do you not move forward, but what happens really? You move backwards, right? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Everybody awake or what? It's too dark in here, I think. Talking to myself. Okay. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was describing that the Quran will escape from you, but he compared it to which animal? Yeah, the camel. Yeah, raise your voice a little bit. He compared it to the camel. Why did he compare it to the camel and not to a horse? Which is faster, the horse or the camel? A horse is faster. So why didn't he describe that it's like a horse, that it will run away? Because the camel, by its nature, it's an unruly animal, and it doesn't like to take orders, or sometimes it doesn't recognize its owner, or at least submit to its owner. So he described it to an animal that by its nature wouldn't mind running away and escaping from you. So you stop memorizing, not only do you lose momentum, not only do you not move forward, but you actually find that you have moved backwards and you forget some of the ayat that you memorized. So don't stop. And when you memorize something, you repeat it or you review it. You repeat or you review, because if it just sits there, it might start to disappear. Even if it's not Quran, it might start to disappear. That's why you have some of the scholars, like for example Imam al-Zuhri rahimahullah, he used to repeat his ahadith. So he would learn and memorize the hadith, then he would come home and he would tell the servant girl the hadith. So the servant girl, she's sitting there, a young girl, she wants to play or she wants to work, and he's telling her, حدثنا فلان عن فلان, and then she's just listening to him. And when he would finish, she would tell him, why are you telling me this hadith? What should I benefit from this? And he would tell her, I just wanted to repeat it to somebody. Some of the students of knowledge before, they would just stop kids in the street and stop them and tell them the hadith, just to repeat it so it stays in their mind. So you repeat it. And something very important is that you act upon it. And this is very important. We're going to look at that later on in more detail, inshallah. You act upon it. For example, you memorize the book of dua, right? So dua for travel, the dua for entering the house, leaving the house, entering the masjid. If you memorize the dua and you don't use it, then you put yourself again at risk of losing what you have memorized. So one of the ways to keep it in your mind is to keep repeating it, or to keep using it as well. If you've heard of some of our contemporary scholars who have memorized like books or volumes upon volumes of books, they review these books to keep it in their memory, to keep it fresh. They review these books. And some of them have a phenomenal memory. And like I said, part of that, some of it maybe is attainable through practice, but some people are just, mashallah, beyond normal. There was one scholar, and there's a teacher at a university, and he was looking for a specific word in Arabic, and he couldn't find it in some of the largest lexicons. He couldn't find this word. So there was an older sheikh, he went to him, and he asked him this word. He said, you will find it in the book of such and such, and in the volume number this, page number that. He tells him by volume, by book, and by page number. He said, I went and got the book from the library, and then I came back to the sheikh. This is a true story. And he said, okay, so what about this word? He said the sheikh said, he repeated from his memory everything that was in that page. And I had the page open in front of me, and the sheikh was saying from his head everything that as we were following along. So I said to the sheikh, Ya sheikh, I think you probably reviewed this book today, this morning. So the sheikh said to him, this is stuff that we memorized when we were 17 years old. Memory stayed with him all that time. Okay. What else helps memorize? Somebody yell something out. Not an insult, but something that helps memorize. Naam? Dua. You said dua, good. Something that I've been mentioning it here and here, but I didn't say that this is something that helps your memory. This is something that you, okay, this is a very clear hint now. It's something that you memorize and it helps memory. Somebody said it. Quran. Yeah? I mean, part of training yourself to memorize, through memorizing the ayat of the Quran, that's the training in memory. And then once you memorize the Quran, does it make it easier for you to memorize other things? Yes, you've probably seen that. You've probably seen a lot of young huffaz, they memorize the Quran, and after that they memorize the book of Bukhari, for example. Or they memorize the fortification of the Muslim, the whole thing, every dua in it. So why is it that you always find this, once they memorize the Quran, they have this excellent ability to memorize other books? Why do you think? Probably the Quran does something, right? To your noodles up here. Helps you memorize. And actually there's a study that was done in 2000, the year 2000, in the University College of London, and they did this experiment with the taxi cab drivers. They did the brain scan on them. And I don't know if you know this, but in Britain, or like in London, they have two kinds of cabs. There's that black ugly car you've probably seen in the movies, extremely ugly car. That's the taxi cab. And then they have other taxi cabs, the regular cars. The black one is the more expensive one. You find that downtown, and it's extremely, extremely difficult to pass the test. The last time I was in London, a taxi driver, not the black one, he was telling me that they make much more money than we do. I said, well, why don't you get one of those ugly black cars? He said the test is unbelievably difficult. It's so difficult. I mean, they could ask you any two questions from about 400 possible roads that you can take. But you have to know exactly how to get there, and how far it is, and how long it would take, and estimate the fare as well. And they could ask you for the smallest little street that you're not aware of, but you have to know it like the back of your hand. It's a very difficult test. So, rightfully so that they would do the brain scan on these people. So they did this brain scan on 16 different cab drivers. And they discovered that the hippocampus, okay, I'm not talking about a large mammal at your university. The hippocampus is the part of the brain that stores long-term memory. They noticed that the hippocampus in these cab drivers was more developed and larger, or the back end of it was larger than in controlled, meaning regular other people, non-cab drivers. So the study was like an indication that perhaps the act of memorization, it changes the brain structure and improves your brain and your general ability to memorize. So if we can, base off of this study, say that those who memorize the Quran, the practice of memorizing the Quran, it improves the structure of their brain, or improves their ability to memorize, and that's why you find so many huffaz, they're able to go on and memorize other things and things of that sort. There was one of the famous ways, or it's considered the best way to memorize anything, is through repetition. Repetition. One of the best ways to memorize until today is just to keep repeating something until you memorize it. And you've probably had maybe a study partner where it takes you a while to memorize, and they've already memorized it. But you know what? Usually, what happens? The shorter it takes you to memorize something, more or less, the quicker you forget it. I used to study with my friend a long time ago in the 1940s, and I used to I would look at it, in 2 minutes I've memorized it, and he's still going through, and he looks at me like, "You memorized it?" So yeah, I memorized it. But then 2 days later I forgot it, and he still memorized it. It took him more time. There was a famous story of a faqih, and he had these lines, and he was memorizing them. So he was walking around the house and just repeating the verse over and over and over. And there was an old lady in the house, maybe his mother-in-law or somebody's grandmother or his mother. She was sitting and she just keeps hearing him repeat it. She's like, "What is it with you? You still haven't memorized this?" "I memorized it sitting here." So he's like, "Oh yeah?" And he tested her. He tested her, and she did it. She memorized everything. It's like, and then of course now she got attitude and stuff. She's like, "So I memorized it, and you're still sitting here repeating this all day. You give me a headache." So he came to her 2 days later. He said, "Okay, tell me the line." There were like 70 lines. He said, "Tell me the lines again." She couldn't remember them. And he told her, "I was repeating it constantly, so what happened to you would not happen to me." You see? And so repetition is until now considered to be the best way of memorizing. And some scholars say if you repeat something from 25 to 30 times, that you'll memorize it. Some have even said 50 or 55 times until you memorize it to the point where you can't forget it easily, or you can't forget it anytime soon. And even just so you can benefit, if you have a presentation in your school, or you have a reading. See, a lot of times when you're about to read something, you think, "Well, I know how to read," so you don't practice it. And then you come on in front of the mic and you're like, and the faqih was repeating the old woman, because the flow is not there. You notice the newscaster, when they read, well, now they don't do that anymore, but in the good old days when they used to read, they could look up for a while and they could keep saying what they're reading from their head. Why? Because they've semi-memorized it. So they tell you to present something well, you have to read it at least 25 times. 25 times. You have almost memorized it, and it comes so naturally. Even if you lose your spot on the page, it's still in your head. So that's just as a beneficial point for you. But you memorize, it's one of the best ways, so you don't forget, and it's one of the best ways to remember in a way that it doesn't just evaporate a few days later. Because now, especially in our day and age, there's so many things that are competing for your attention. And to sit down and memorize, this is something that's kind of difficult now. Why? We're used to everything being fast-paced. Everything has flashing lights and sounds and music with it. And so you have to sit down and keep repeating something. It's very difficult. That's why so many kids have, ADD these days. It's not funny. I don't know why you're laughing. Really, so many kids have ADD because they can't. They can't sit still for a minute. They want to see images. They want to see commercials and Tricks the Rabbit, and they want to see stuff. They can't sit down and be quiet. So things are competing for your attention now, and there's TV and there's internet and constantly. And now we're training kids so that their brain does. There's video games. I forgot to mention that. And you see, in one part of the world, you think that nobody plays video games. But then I was surprised to discover so many brothers, mashallah, they play video games. Brother have his beard down to here. Wallah, alhamdulillah, brother, these days I'm playing a video game. I have made good progress, alhamdulillah. MashaAllah. This other brother, he was playing this game where you conquer the world, right? So he was with the army of Abu Bakr, And this is the sad part, that in his game, in his mind, I think the game became a reality. He came to me boasting about, I brought all of Europe under Islam. I said, Wallah, mashallah, this is a great news. Playing a video game like that. And another brother, I met him in Ramadan. And he was like, yeah, these days I'm playing, that's that game that where you get off your car, you can kill people and steal things. And what? GTA. So in Ramadan he's playing that. He got his beard up to here. He's playing Grand Theft Auto. After Taraweeh he's like, okay, where was I? Oh yeah, I was robbing this store. Okay, let me finish. See, the sisters are laughing, but the brothers are not. What could that say? Brothers have the game on pause right now at home, huh? When they go home and say, okay, akhi, astaghfirullah, brother Kamal said, don't rob the store, so I'm just going to get back in the car and drive around town. Alright, so, enough with the corny jokes. You teach knowledge to others, it helps it stay in your mind. One of the best things for you to learn is to teach others. No doubt. One of the best ways for you to learn is to teach others, because you sit and you gather so much information and then you write it, and so much happens when you write something down. I had a teacher in 6th grade, he used to make us write the entire science experiment out and then give the results. And so we just wanted to copy it or copy and paste it. No, you'd have to handwrite it. And he used to always say, so much happens when you go through this process of writing something down, and so much happens up here. So Ali radiallahu anhu, he used to compare knowledge and money. He used to say knowledge is better than money, because knowledge protects you. Yeah? Knowledge guards you, while you have to guard money. True or false? True. And then he says, knowledge increases with disbursement, while knowledge decreases. True or false? True, huh? False. True. But I'm just wondering, the energy, what's happening? I don't know. Too much, breakfast was too heavy, stay up late last night. Alright. So when you teach others, it increases. So everyone believe that your knowledge increases when you teach it to others? Does that make sense? Why? Why would that make sense? Naam? Why would it make sense? You repeat, yes, but why would it increase? You would just, okay, so the same knowledge, but now it's more solid. But why would it increase? The more you teach something, the more you contemplate about it. If you're teaching tafsir, for the third, fourth time, you start to realize something about this meaning of this ayah, and why this word was before that word, and why this ayah was before that ayah, and what's the link between this segment of this chapter and the next segment. So the more you teach, the more you contemplate, the more you think, and the more you learn about what you're teaching. Okay, and I'll do two more things I'll add to helping improve your memory. One of them I don't know if you'll ever do. It's basically al-hijama. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith that cupping, it helps your memory as well. How many people have been cupped over here? Hands up. Cupping, hijama, it's like, it's bloodletting, they call it also. If all these terms don't make sense, basically they put a cup on your back, they suck on your skin, and then they cut you up. And alright, who has experienced that? 2 people. See, that's why I didn't mention it. It's not like if I tell you hijama improves your memory, everybody's going to go and start getting slashed up, right? So okay, but that's just for your knowledge that hijama improves memory. And honey also improves memory. Some of the early scholars, Imam al-Zuhri and others, they used to say that honey is good for the memory. So is there any scientific evidence to this? No? You're so sure? Yes, there is actually. One of the things is that, first of all, honey, it has free sugar molecules, and your brain is like one of the largest consumers of sugar. And honey also has the ability to get into your blood very quickly. If you consume some honey and you drink some water, it can enter your blood within 7 minutes. So it's actually good for the brain, and it actually, it's known to help improve memory. Okay, I'm just going to stop anyways. Khair inshallah. I agreed with Sheikh Uthman that I was going to stop here and just make a quick mention of some other points. Yeah? Is that fine with you? Jazakallah khair. So, well, and great, so there's no Q&A. So let me just end on this note in the last 10 minutes or so that I have. You probably heard that some brothers got shot or shot at last night. Did you hear that? Some people who were with us. You heard? Nice. Okay. So the news spread quickly, right? So, like, I'm not really familiar with what were the consequences. Was this some kind of retaliation or a gang thing? And I understand a few weeks ago something similar happened as well. So there's this problem with violence, and a lot of times we assume that it's the other kids who are violent and not our good young Muslim kids who are into the violence. But you know something, being a part of the society, these things will naturally creep into the minds of the youth. So I want some of the youth to tell me and tell me what you think. Don't tell me something that you think will make me happy. What do you think is, like, what are the characteristics of being a man? Somebody put your hand up. What are the characteristics? Sisters, we don't need your input here. We don't need to hear all the bad stuff. What are the characteristics of being a man? Nobody wants to put their hand up. Marriage? Okay. Alright, so those of you who are not married then, what category do you fall in? What's the characteristic? Like what, okay, so what are the, okay, let me just rephrase it. What are the descriptions of a man? What is a man like? Or what makes someone a man? Yes, sir? Masculine? Okay. I'll accept that. If you want to define masculine, that's fine. You want to define it? Strength. Allahu Akbar. Strength. Yes, sir. Responsible for your actions. Okay. Somebody else? Yes, sir. No? Okay, nobody wants to cooperate today. Alright, fine. So a lot of times when you ask youth, and there are studies where young men growing up in the West, in America and Canada, have been asked what makes a man a man. And usually you hear things about being strong. They do use that word. They say strong, they say power, they say aggressive, they say all these things that are generally violent or aggressive things. And this is how they define themselves, that to be a man you need to be like this. And that's why in school they look at the sports guy, the jock, the guy with the broad shoulders, that he's more of a man than the guy that's usually end up stuffed in a locker somewhere, or the nerd or the geek, So this is the definition. Where do you think people get this from? Of course, you know the answer. From the media, from television, and from stereotypes, from music, right? This is what you're told. And of course, one of the most popular forms of music would be what they call hip hop or rap. And basically, what is the general message there? Give your neighbor a flower, be sweet today. What do they sing? What do they sing about? They all sing about how bad they are, how unbelievably violent and cool they are. And so the youth are affected by that. Some of them listen to that type of music and they watch TV. The cool guy in the movie is the guy who just broke the other guy's nose, and then the camera angle gets the wind blowing through his hair and he's like, says something really cool. Don't ever do that again. Oh, mashallah, you're so courageous. This is the problem though. And so you find Muslim youth, they're bad. What do I mean by that? They're bad, So the youth, Salaam alaikum, they're like, sure. No smile. The good guys, the cool guys, they don't smile. So why should he smile to you in the masjid, Salaam alaikum, brother? No, he's just like, Salaam alaikum. MashaAllah, you're so cool. So this is a problem that we have. And we have this thing where now the thug mentality comes natural with growing up. And sometimes people even have to fake it just so they can survive through school. They're walking around with their shoulder out and everything is out, and when they're alone, sisters have been like this the whole time. So, the truth is really, I mean, you may find yourself being forced into those situations where you're a tough guy and you have to speak in a certain way. But the truth is, that's not who you're supposed to be. Okay? And I don't mean that you're Muslim only. But what I mean by that is that you have another kind of job. And I know you'll think that, well, I'm still young and, you know, that's not my job yet. That's for shuyukh and speakers and those people. But you're du'at here. Are you not? Aren't you? I mean, how many of your friends have you invited and brought to Islam? Who would like to share a number with us? Sisters, maybe? Are you telling me this room, how many people are in this room? 500. 500. And 500, a lot of them are Somalis, so, you know, I consider that good quality, inshallah. That's how I feel, you know. So if a bunch of Arabs and stuff, I'll be like, whatever, you know. I'm just saying that. If you were Arabs, I'll be like, Arabs, you know. But seriously, are you telling me 500 people and no one here invited anyone to Islam? Maybe you were taught that this is the job for those du'at. The imam of the masjid can do that. Oh, one sister, oh, where is this? Where is this? MashaAllah. And another one? 2, 3. How come these hands start coming up now after I reprimand everybody? 5 from the sisters. Brothers? 6. We got one brother. 2, 3. What's happening over here? I know you guys are honest, but just suddenly like, oh, I remember those 5 I gave Jihad to yesterday. Okay, fine. Oh, I know. I know you're being humble. Barakallahu fikum. But in this position, you know, put your hand up so we can see what the situation is. But in the last 5 minutes, really, you're du'at. I mean, I know some 15-year-olds and 14-year-olds who bring their friends into Islam. They're friends from high school, or middle school. Instead of just hanging out and just playing games all day, you know, they call them to Islam. So the problem is when you think you're a thug, you're approached by another gang in the school. So what do? So this is instead of Islam saying, well, you know, we're du'at, you know, we can call them to Islam. You think, oh, well, you know, we're Muslims, we have to stand together, so we're going to call our own gang. And you will have the Amir of the gang. This is now, the Islamic response to gang violence is we start our own gang. We're going to call it the Mukabbirin or whatever you want to call it. And we have the Amir over here. And, you know, our gang colors, we all wear the kufi. And so what happens? You have now plenty of beef between you and the other group. And that's all it becomes. Don't think that I'm trying to put blame on someone who got injured. But du'at, there's different ways to deal with things. And even in your school, I know you think it is a jungle, but you still have that obligation of calling these people to Islam. How would you love if on the day of judgment, you know, and everyone has enough problems on that day, and then all these people from your class and these best friends who used to sleep over at your place and hang out with you, and they come and say, you know, he's the reason we're not Muslim. We used to be with him for hours and for weeks and for years. Since 2nd grade we were together. We only parted to go to separate universities or something. He never invited me to Islam. Not once. And I used to tell him that I was confused. And I told him that how would you like that? So your job is really du'at, okay? That's your other job. Allahumma wa barak ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, we'll be breaking for Salatul Duhr and lunch break. For the sisters, Salah is going to be at Gym C, which is like the hall down here. So sisters are doing security, guide the sisters towards there. And for the brothers, you'll be on the hallway, the cafeteria hallway. So it should be over here on that side of the cafeteria, the hallway there. So people are doing security for the brothers, do that also. Lunch will be from 1:45 until 3. So 3 sharp, we will be beginning with the rest of the conference. And also please remember to take care of the school. We have been, with the charity of the principal and TSB, they allowed us to use this venue. So please take care of the school. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.